ISO 2022, Federal Reserve just adopted it yesterday, July 14, 2025. What does this mean for XRP? What does this mean for XLM? What does it mean for all the coins? I believe there's 8 coins that have the ISO 20022 standard, because we have the world's biggest bank, the Federal Reserve, adopting this standard literally yesterday. This is insane. And so what I want to do in this video is break down all of the facts behind the situation. I want to cut through the noise, get very specific on exactly what's going on from an unbiased perspective, because I usually see 2 extremes. Number 1, people really, really hate these type of coins, or number 2, they worship these coins. So we're going to try to go through the middle, cut through the noise, get to the facts. Thank you guys for watching. In this video, we're going to talk about all of that, and we're going to go into great detail. I also want to give a timeline and realistic expectation of when like this global adoption is actually going to happen by percentages. We're going to get some predictions, as well as look at exactly how much money can be going into XRP via transaction volume. And if you're new here, my name is Alex. I've been doing crypto for a long time, 8 years, full-time crypto for 6 years. And I made this channel as a way to connect with other investors and really just to build a crypto movement. So thank you for watching. And I just want to just go through this because there's a lot of people talking about it. There's a lot of noise. And I've had even people come at me with stuff, and I want to get to the truth of what I actually believe. And so this is what I actually believe, and it's based off facts and evidence and the truth. So basically, FedWire was created by the Federal Reserve, and it becomes mandatory on July 14, 2025, with Swift messaging fully transitioning by November 22nd, 2025. So the US Federal Reserve officially moves FedWire payments onto ISO 20022 standard on July 14th. This is really, really big. Now, I want people to understand, this does not mean the Federal Reserve is adopting a blockchain coin. Does not mean that XRP is now officially in the Federal Reserve. This does not mean any of that. This means they're adopting the same standard when it comes to messaging. So it's very simple. Right now, the way that the current system works is that if one bank wants to send, let's say, I don't know, $10 million to another bank in another country or whatever, they don't really send money. They send a message. They send a message, and then the central bank and all these banks handle the actual process of it. So for example, this bank will send 10 million, they'll send the message will be, received at the other bank or whatever the case is. And then a couple of banks will come together and make the actual money happen. They will just give them the money or whatever the case is for a fee. So right now, our current system was built in the 1970s. It's extremely slow and very expensive. So obviously when blockchains come into play with this, it's an upgrade. It's a massive upgrade. Do I believe in the future XRP and XLM will get adoption? Yes. Do I believe it's right now? No. And I'll explain everything. You'll understand exactly what I'm saying. So on November 22nd, 2025, basically, it will be the global standard for cross-border messaging. Now, when it comes to different jurisdictions and countries, they get to choose if they're going to force their banks to do it. It's not exactly like they have to all do it, but in America, that's pretty much what it is. By November 22nd, 2025, it is a standard that all banks are going to have to adopt, which is, again, simply a messaging standard. So before we had an old way of messaging, this is a new enriched data way of messaging. There's a lot more data involved. There's a lot more that they can use that will benefit. It's a massive upgrade to the messaging system. I want to be very clear with everybody because there's a lot, but it is a lot of money too. So for example, now, yes, there is an option for banks to use XRP and XLM because they're on this messaging standard as well. But it does not mean they have to use it. In fact, if we look at other standards that have been upgraded, and we're going to talk about that in this video, other standards in the same exact process, it usually takes 20 to 40 years. I'm going to explain what I'm saying, but it's going to get really realistic because, again, like this doesn't mean that this stuff is not real. It just means that you got to be realistic with the timelines and don't like get wrecked and invest your money too early thinking that tomorrow XRP is going to go to $100. That is not realistic at all. So let's talk about adoption. I believe even modest adoption for XRP and XLM, if you'll say the Federal Reserve of these banks actually use the coin, not just the messaging protocol, they actually use the coin, because by the way, they could use the messaging protocol. They do not have to use the coin. And chances are they're not going to use the coin for a long time. And if they do use the coin, they're going to slowly integrate it. They're not going to integrate it fully. So Swift alone processes 5 to 6 trillion daily. We're talking about 1.25 quadrillion annually. These are big numbers. So this is even with 10% adoption. So we're talking about 150 trillion per year for cross-border payments alone. Just a 10% minimum adoption is 15 trillion annually moving through XRP, XLM, and there's 8 coins. There's other 8 coins. I just wanted to talk about XRP and XLM because I think they're the most significant for sure. Another thing to take into consideration for ISO 20022, XRP is on the board. So they're a part of it. They're a member. They're actually shaping this process, this messaging process. So like, I believe the one that's obviously most likely to realistically be used is XRP for sure. Now, another thing that XRP just recently did is actually apply for a banking license. A little bit older news. This happened on July 2nd, but this is also very significant because if they do get this banking license, it's going to make it much easier for banks to want to adopt them. So it's expected late 2025 or early 2026, and they officially applied with the OCC on July 2nd. This grants Ripple direct Federal Reserve access, significantly cutting transaction costs and improving settlement speeds. So yeah, this is really, really big. But again, like I told you, and we're going to go through history. I want to base this off of history, that's not just my opinion. If you look at other upgrades to this system, it takes a long time. So when I'm saying 2027 to 2030, yes, I'm thinking like even with this massive upgrade, it's going to take a while. So let's look at realistic adoption timeline based on history. So realistically, large-scale XRP and XLM adoption by the global financial institution will likely take 15 to 25 years. I've seen even people throw around numbers like 14% adoption. Do not believe that will happen, not even close to 5 years. I'm thinking, I wouldn't even say 25 years, probably 30, 40 maybe. But let's base it off of history, right? So we have conservative estimates and then aggressive estimates or whatever the case is. So the EMV chip, card adoption. So this is like where we could actually, tap to pay. It took 30 years, okay? ACH payments took 40 years to become a standard practice. And ISO 20022 itself required over 20 years to be fully integrated globally. Based on these historical timelines, a 10 to 20% XRP XLM adoption may occur like in the 2030s, guys. 50% adoption could be like 2040s, but obviously these would be really, really big. And there's so many things that can happen. Nobody can estimate the future like that. We don't know if a new coin will come out. We don't know. So like, this is why I always tell people, don't marry coins. We do not know. Make your money now. We don't know what's going to go on. So the question is, why is this adoption so slow? Because that's how the banking system works. You guys got to comprehend that this messaging standard, yes, it allows better technology like XRP and XLM, but like, bro, do you understand how many billions of dollars these banks make? They want it to be inefficient. They want it to be expensive and slow on purpose so that when these banks actually have to settle it, they make a whole bunch of money and a whole bunch of fees. They're like monopolies. They're not going to just give up their revenue source. They're going to sue XRP. They're going to do whatever it takes, right, to keep their revenue source, right? Banks currently generate 200 billion annually from cross-border transaction fees alone, right? Banks charge up to 7% per international transaction under the existing system. So if they adopted it without making money, and I'm sure XRP and XLM have ways for the banks to make money, of course, right? But if they just adopt it blindly and they don't slowly integrate it, they don't fully comprehend it, they're going to be deleting billions of dollars annually from. They're not going to just adopt it. Why would they kill their own revenue source? It's like, that's where all of this hype has to die. It's like, why would they kill their own revenue source by adopting XRP or XLM? No, if they're going to do it, they're going to integrate it like 0.01% and learn it. And then they're going to probably do a deal with XRP and XLM, right? To make sure that they can continue their revenue source. They want to make sure XRP is not going to get sued again. They want to make sure all of these things are going to happen before they integrate it and they kill their only revenue source. They're going to make sure they make that 200 billion. I promise you, they're going to make sure they're going to keep that 200 billion. They're not going to just integrate it. That is not how this works. So delete the hype narratives, please. Even a small adoption rate, though, again, like I said, is really big. We're talking about trillions of dollars of years. So I just wanted to go into it with realistic deadlines and things like that. Right now, can this hype pump the price of the coins? Yes. But I don't believe it's based off of utility. When everybody's telling me that there's trillions of dollars of transactions potentially going into XRP, and I'm like sitting here and I'm like, how? Not utility driven. The narrative will push the price of the coin up. So the story itself will push the price of the coin up, but not the actual transactions, because that's not happening for another 20 to 30 years. So we need to focus on decades, not days, right? We do have adoption dates. We could have a pump in these coins November 22nd, things like this. As people start to really understand it, it will happen. It is a thing. It is a thing. It's not fake. But we have to get our timelines right. We have to have realistic expectations and really look at what's going on. Every type of similar payment system or messaging standard or whatever the case is that's gotten upgraded, it took 20 to 40 years. So how can you make a claim that somehow XRP is going to do it in 5? It's not realistic. And it doesn't mean that there's not other coins that can come out the woodwork. It also doesn't mean that banks are not going to make their own coin. And another thing that a lot of people don't address with XRP and XLM and things like that is that they don't have a lot of ecosystem development. They don't have the same amount of developers as Ethereum. Ethereum is maybe 10 times bigger when it comes to liquidity. That's a hard pill for a lot of people to swallow. Ethereum is like 10 times bigger in the grand scheme of things. If you look at it, Ethereum's bigger. It's way bigger. Here's another one. JP Morgan launched their own stablecoin for institutions. Why would they use XRP? JP Morgan, the story goes that basically the JP Morgan helped create the Federal Reserve. So yeah, they have deep ties into the Federal Reserve, and they created their own stablecoin. They're not using XRP. Like, it's just, I don't comprehend it, how it all perfectly plays out. Will XRP and XLM do well? Yes, they will. But let's let go of all that, okay? This is the middle ground. This is the truth. Regardless if you believe it or not, it's up to you. I love you guys. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you appreciate this content, like the video, subscribe to the channel. I'll see you guys later. Oh, by the way, just throw it in here. We actually made a full course on this. I made a full 7-module course in our group, and it's 72% off. Take advantage. Click the link wherever it is. If you're on Instagram or TikTok, go to the bio, link in my bio. If you're on YouTube, click the link, pinned comment below. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. Catch you in the next one. Peace out.